A struggle for power is deepening in Sudan, with tensions escalating between rival sides in the government. These people want democracy. Sudan has been led by a transitional council since the ouster of Omar Al Bashir in 2019. Now, the council is made up of members of the military and civilians. It's been a difficult alliance because the two sides have different interests. Those differences are spilling over onto the streets. Thousands of people marched in the capital Khartoum and elsewhere to support a civilian-led government and reject military rule. But groups supporting the military have also been on the streets. I'll be talking to a political analyst in the capital Khartoum after this report.
Demonstrators in the capital rallying against a return to military rule. They've taken to the streets as divisions over the country's future grow even deeper. Yes to a civilian state, yes to a democratic transition, and no to military rule. Like these demonstrators, most people support Sudan's move towards democracy. After authoritarian leader Omar Al Bashir was ousted in 2019, military and civilian leaders agreed to share power and transition to civilian rule. The current authority is led by civilian Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok. Both parties say they're committed to the plan to hold democratic elections in 2023. But amid an economic crisis, public support for the arrangement is waning. Some feel the military has too much power. Others want to see the generals in charge. This anti-government sit-in, led by Islamist pro-military protesters, has been going on for days. They're demanding the dissolution of the transitional government. We're sitting here until Prime Minister Hamdok finds us a solution. Either he leaves or his cabinet leaves or the story ends. Just like we removed 30 years of rule, we will remove 2 years of rule. Demonstrations in both camps have remained largely peaceful so far. But after so many years under Al Bashir, Sudan's transition is still caught between democracy and dictatorship.
And for some analysis, I am now joined by Khulud K, a political analyst from the capital, Khartoum. Welcome to DW News Africa, Khulud. We just saw huge crowds come out to demonstrate in support of civilian rule. Is this a continuation of the movement that brought down Omar Al Bashir?
In many ways, yes. The movement that we saw in 2018, 2019 was very heterogeneous. We had people from all different walks of life, men, particularly women, young people especially, all calling for the same thing, was for civilian rule. And we see echoes of that very much now. Yesterday's protest we see very much the same kinds of people, the same messages, this time much more concerted and concentrated on Al-Burhan and Hemeti rather than Bashir, but very much the same messaging coming across. And that's because even though there have been previous protests before, throughout the transition period, that called for different things, the parliament to be set up, etc., this one, I think people recognize that the stakes are that we have to now make a choice of whether we go for civilian rule in the future or go back to military rule. And people are choosing the latter, the former.
Right, and let's talk about the people who demonstrated in support of military rule. Who are they, Khulud, and why are they against the transition?
So the people who protested on Saturday, on the 16th of October, are people who are loyal to the Islamists that were part of the rebel alliance before the signing of the peace agreement last year. They're members of the former NCP regime, Bashir's regime, and they're more conservative part of society. Some of those people did actually join the October 18 revolution, so they were part of the original revolt against Bashir for different reasons, right? There are also factions within the Islamist political umbrella. But today, now, what we see 2 years on after the fall of Bashir is that the Islamists have again realigned to the military. In some cases, the military they used to fight as rebels, and they have come now together to try and oust the civilian Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok and try and put military back in place.
Khulud, Sudan is due to hold an election in 2023 to vote in a civilian government, but could we see the military steal this revolution?
I think we've seen signs that they have been trying to. There was a failed coup attempt on the 21st of September this year, just last month. And from that, we have seen increasing divisions in the civilian umbrella, obviously orchestrated in some part by the military. And so we have seen these sorts of power grabs or evidence of power grabs throughout, not just in the coup that I mentioned, but even before that, in the ways that the military has been resisting reforms in the economy or resisting transitional justice processes. So I think, the election will be just one such instance where we might see the military try different ways of stealing the election. But there are different ways to do a coup, and installing someone who is more allied to the military is also another way we might see the military try and take over.
Khulud, civilians have executive power in the Transition Council. How much power does Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok have? Is he able to heal the divisions and bring the civilian camp together?
Well, the power, as far as the constitutional document of 2019 is concerned, should really be with the executive branch under Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok. But we've seen the Sovereign Council, which is sort of acts as the head of state, 14-member council. We've seen them, the military members of that council, try and sort of eke out power where they can. And that balance between the military camp in the cabinet and the Forces for Freedom and Change and the military camp in both in the Sovereign Council and otherwise, we've seen that sort of play out and go back and forth throughout the transition. Currently, I would say the civilians are enjoying a lot more power because of the show of force of demonstrations yesterday. But the military has always maintained the power over the economy and power over the monopoly of violence. And so there are always ways which it can sort of try and bring back power.
That's Khulud K talking to us from Khartoum. Thank you, Khulud.